Welcome, everyone, to Soundscape and Mindful Meditation, where we explore the transformative power of meditation, sound healing, mindfulness, and spirituality. My name is Amandine. I am your guide on this journey toward inner balance and harmony. In this podcast, we delve into the practices that nourish the soul, elevate the spirit, and cultivate a deeper connection with oneself. Each episode is crafted to bring you moments of tranquility or introspection. Whether you're seeking relaxation, stress relief, or a pathway to self-discovery, this is your place. And in today's episode, we are graced with the light of Stephanie, a Christian life coach dedicated to illuminating the path of women of faith. Stephanie's vocation is unique as she weaves together the threads of spiritual connection with the empowering fabric of life coaching. Together, we have delved into how faith-led teachings and insight can ignite positive transformation. During our time, we uncovered Stephanie's approach to coaching women in the Christian community, discussed the harmonization of faith with personal aspiration, and shared stories of resilience and revelation. So join us as we traverse the celestial bridge of introspection and inspiration with Stephanie and learn how she guides women to their inner sanctum, where faith and authenticity bloom into their fullest expression. You again so much for being here. This is kind of exciting. I was just thinking last time I was looking at the people that, are going to come on the podcast, and I realized I didn't have somebody from the Christian faith yet. And I was like, we need to have someone. Because I love, being about inclusivity. You have to have all the points of view. So thank you so very much for bringing that energy in the podcast.
Absolutely. It's an honor. I've been excited and looking forward to it. So thanks for the invitation.
Yeah. So your name is Stephanie Hibbert or Hibbert?
Hibbert. You're good.
Hibbert.
People do it all the time.
And so you're a Christian life coach.
Mm-hmm.
And you do your work on the website, thelightcoach.com.
Yes.
And I will probably put the link in the description. And so could you tell us a little bit about just how you started, a little background about your journey so far?
Sure. So how far back you want? I came from a family that was quite dysfunctional and had my own healing that I needed to do, and lots of therapy and years of doing that. I decided, I probably need some extra education about this. So I got my bachelor's in family life studies, helping me understand what a healthy family would look like. And it put a desire in me to help families that are struggling in the community. So then I got my master's in nonprofit management, and I helped addiction recovery nonprofits that help support the family members of those who were addicted. And that was really fulfilling and beautiful to me. For about 7 years, I did that. But then I found that there were so many patterns that I just kept seeing come up, and healing and therapy, that the next phase after that, people just got stuck. They didn't quite know how to create what came next. And my heart went out to these women, especially that I was supporting. And then I went across country and moved from Utah to Texas. And when I came here, God very clearly gave me we're not going to do what we did in Utah. We need to do something new. And I had a little bit of an identity crisis and went through the cleansing process of, okay, what's this new phase for me? I keep wanting these other women to move forward. I need to move forward. What's this new phase for me? So I hired a life coach for me for a year and really found that to be transformational. And when I started seeing her teach me, I realized what those other women had been missing: the hope of what's next, the understanding of how your thoughts create your feelings and influence your actions. And that pattern I was able to unlock in myself. And one day I just thought, what if I did this for Christian women? What if I became a life coach and helped with that? And it was like God put a lightning in my heart and said, yes, this is what I want you to do. Go do that. So I spent a year being trained as a life coach so that then I could go and do that and build my own business. So that was back in 2019. And it's been an evolving process ever since. But that is my passion, is helping those committed Christian women to find that fulfillment, to break free of those unfulfilling patterns, and to move forward in hopeful, creatable, sustainable ways that taps into the divinity and light within them.
Dang. Wow, that's beautiful. It's very interesting that you changed in 2019, basically right before the pandemic. I'm sure that that
Yes.
transition was needed for so many.
Yeah, for me as well. It was a overhaul, let's just say that.
Yes, I would imagine. So I want to, could you tell us a little bit about your approach to life coaching for women within the Christian faith community? You mentioned something about, or at least how I understand what you were saying is that sometimes people have that aha moment of like, oh, yes, this is what I need to change, but then they don't really know how to translate that aha moment on a sustainable, life-changing habits.
Absolutely. That's a piece of it. The main thing that I saw with the women I worked with before and the ones that I help empower now is that a lot of the healing world, a lot of the which you understand this actually really well, but a lot of the healing world, a lot of the progression looks to the past to find where the problems are.
Mhm.
And the therapy, the support groups, a lot of it is what pain, what trauma did I experience that's affecting me to show up this way, which yes, that has influence, but what it influenced was your now beliefs. And if we uncover the now beliefs, we get capacity to move forward on what's next, and we don't blame the past or continue to look to the past. And I think past healing is so important, but giving yourself permission to be new. I mean, I support Christian women, and that's what Christ's whole message is become a new creature and find new
Mhm.
healing and move forward in faith. So is that answering the question that you were looking
Yeah, I
for?
think so. Yeah. No, it's I really like that approach because yes, like you just said, there is a lot of like let's look at the past. My meditation teacher would always tell us like look at the sky, you have two eagles fighting, one of the good, one of the bad. It can be one of the past, or and which one is going to win? The one you feed. So if you're
Yes,
always looking in the past and you're looking at your problem, this is the space you're occupying. But if you look at the present or the future and you bring in what you want, then yeah. So I really appreciate that method.
absolutely.
Uh, so how does integrating faith and Christianity in life coaching enrich the support you offer?
Great question. So, for me, when I first started as a life coach, I was committed to be non denominational, to not even talk about faith, just anybody that I could help, I would help. And I started that. If you listen to my podcast, Radiant You, my first episodes are very, 12-step language. If you have a higher power or whatever your energy is, and talked very neutrally. And I found that I couldn't be very authentic. It was hard for
Hmm.
me because my core, my soul, I have a lot of faith and a lot of desire to connect with God. And that doesn't mean that I think that other people's way of connecting with God is, or whatever source they identify with, is wrong or bad or less than in any way. I just couldn't authentically speak what was coming to my heart without using some of my beliefs in my integration of my message. And as I did that for a while and ironed out my message on my podcast, that was a God thing. He told me I needed to do a podcast to iron out my message, which is a whole different story. But that evolved to be a place where I realized I can help Christian women best because I am a Christian woman. And if I am supporting people in the best way that uses my tools, that is aligned with God's will for me. Now, there are other people who are going to help other people who have different faiths or different beliefs better than I will because I don't understand the beliefs that are keeping them stuck. I have a lot of beliefs from my Christian background that have kept me stuck and that have
Hmm.
made it a hard thing for me to progress and create. And so I understand those same fixed mindset beliefs that other Christian women might have, and I can help them unlock those. So, yes, faith is a vital part of what I believe helps us move forward, but it also is the language I know best. And so that was one of the reasons I decided to go that direction.
I love that you use the word language because I totally think that. I've always thought that for me, faith is kind of like a language. We
Yes.
all have a word to say love, but we don't say it the same way. In French, you say amour. It sounds
Yes.
different, but it's the same energy. And
Yes.
so if you're going to help people, might as well use it with the language you're most comfortable with instead of butchering somebody else's language.
Yes.
I mean, most of the time anyway. And so, yeah, it's interesting that you use that word language. Yeah, it makes total sense that you're like, this is where I come from. This is where I'm evolving from. And a lot of people probably needed somebody who is more in the energy of the Christ or, the
Mhm.
Christianity faith to help them so that, when they have a reference, maybe even to the Bible, you can be like, I know where you're coming from. But if
Yes.
the person was like, I'm Hindu, have you read the Bhagavad Gita? And you're like, no,
No.
cool story. You're like,
Yes.
yeah,
Yes.
it makes total sense. Uh, so what would you say the unique challenges do women of faith face that your coaching addresses?
So, some of the things that I see patterns of over and over again is the inner battle of service versus self care. Because
Mm,
being charitable and the pure love of Christ is charity. And so, how do we give and give and give and desire to be Christ like, but also take care of ourselves along the way? Is that selfish? Is that the natural man that we're trying to overcome, and trying to figure out the balance between truly fueling yourself and honoring that you need to be taken care of too, while giving and sharing and spreading God's love at the same time. A lot of Christian women struggle with that inner battle and finding
yeah.
the permission to give themselves that support, that self-care, that self-love.
That's it. Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, because when you tap into the world of spirituality, and I mean, I've studied and I come from a little Catholic background, so I
Mhm.
understand, a little bit of the that I've found in other, practices, that empathy, that trying to put yourself in, the least, the most vulnerable ones,
Mhm.
without letting yourself being dragged by the power of those emotion, or that yeah, it's
Yes.
very interesting. Yeah, that can be like a very important element of your practice. And so, how do you incorporate a biblical principle into your coaching sessions?
So I am, even though I am a Christian women life coach, there are so many different denominations of Christianity, right? And people read this version of the Bible or these different scriptures, and there are a lot of different approaches of how people practice their faith. So one of the things that I do is talk story based, not necessarily exact word of scripture based, because sometimes that doesn't resonate with the version of the scripture that other people interpret or identify with. So most of what I share is principle based. It's these are the principles, these are the core basics of gospel teaching. Let's make
Mm,
sure that we know those basics. Let's make sure that you're living those basics. One of the things I love is when women pray and we talk about prayer, sometimes Christian women, we get stuck in this. God, I need you to help me have these things. God, give me
mhm,
patience. God, give me this goal. God, open these doors for me, when the truth that in the Bible it teaches is that you are a divine creation from a divine being. And so you already have that divinity in you. And when you ask for it, it's like it's outside of you and you're asking God to hand it to you, when the truth is it's already in you. So let's shift it to talking about, God, I know you already have the ingredients of patience in me. I'm struggling to unlock that and access that. Help me see with your eyes so that I can release that within me, instead of I need to go find it somewhere else. And that principle based helps shift some of that mindset that keeps them stuck. So I'm not as much of let's go in and really dissect this one scripture, but let's take the principles from the word and apply them to where you might be stuck.
thank you. So many times I've heard so many people, telling me in the Catholic faith, like, yeah, you're naturally bad and you need to seek, the good outside. And thank you so much, because that's something that always I was like, no, No, I'm sorry. When we say we were, created in his image, I understand like we have a piece of the divinity within and everywhere around us, and we're not bad, and we're,
Mhm.
just as good as anything else on the planet. So thank you so much for sharing that, because I think that more people need to hear that. And yeah, it's been a stereotype at this point, and
Yes.
so thank you. Yeah, I'm
Absolutely. And
very
I love
happy.
how much you lit up when I started saying that. You're like, yes, preach, this is truth. Because so many people are stuck in that mindset. And again, I do not want to put down any other faith or any other belief. And if that belief is serving you, I'm not going to challenge it. I'm not going to
Mhm.
say, oh, well, the Bible says this way. And so we need to shift your mindset to be aligned with this way I interpret the Bible. No, I'm going to get curious. Is that belief serving you? And if it is, that's fine, but let's surface the effects of that belief and see if we want to keep practicing it.
Yeah. Yeah, I think, I mean, I agree. I completely appreciate your respect towards, wherever people are. But I've noticed a lot of people falling into the trap of becoming that victim and
Yes.
asking outside, oh yeah, I need a help, instead of being like, I claim it's already here and I'm just seeking guidance. But that's what I always say at the end of, when I offer a sound bath or a meditation. I always remind people, you did
Yes.
this shaping which you are right now is your own doing. I was just a guide.
Yes.
When I do a healing, it's the same. You're like, this is you. I just channeled something. I am not a healer. I'm just a sort of an antenna, but you
Yes.
allowed that, energy to come in and heal you. So yeah, that's great. So yeah, to anybody hearing, like if it doesn't resonate with you to feel like that victim, that's because you're not supposed to resonate with being a victim. We're creature, I think, of creation. We're supposed to
Yes.
create our stories, art. We're supposed to create solutions too. So
Yes.
that's beautiful. Um, so now I wanted to ask you, in what way I mean, you already kind of inserted, but just in case you have something now that comes to mind, in what way does coaching women of faith differs from coaching those without a specific, affiliation? You mentioned that you did both, but yeah, if you have something to add through that question.
Yeah. So, one of the things that I find most empowering with my faith and the way I practice my faith is at the core, I don't have to know the answers, that I can get space to be guided towards a better path that I might not understand. And when I'm able to have that focus be the focus when I'm coaching women of faith of, yes, we can explore, we can have an ideal, we can envision where we are going, but at the end of the day, the stress is relieved when you realize that God's the one who's got the reins. If you're allowing Him to do that, it brings so much peace along the journey. And it brings so much
Mm.
of that surrender of, here are the things I can influence, here are the things I can't. And the things I can't, I can grow the faith to let go of that burden and let God carry it for me. I don't have to carry that. And that foundational truth, that foundational supporting belief that these women are literally needing to move forward or it keeps them paralyzed is a huge part of my coaching. So I find
Mm.
that bringing that faith focus, that God's the one who has the bigger picture, who has the better knowledge, that when you feel stuck, you don't have to be the one to solve the problem. You can surrender that and invite that guidance, and then together we see a different path forward.
Nice. Yeah, and you couldn't provide that with like non-denominational or even atheist. Yeah,
Yeah, well,
especially
I
with
mean,
atheists, it's hard.
atheist is a little harder. I actually have a brother who we have had lots of conversations. He goes in and out of what he believes, but atheism is one of the things that he has had the longest shelf life with. So he's an intellectual at heart, and we have the best conversations. But I love learning from his different perspectives, and he loves learning from mine. And one of my proudest moments in life, he's my big brother, but one of my proudest moments of life, I remember getting to a space where he said, you're one of the only Christians that I actually enjoy having conversations about religion with. I'm like, thank you, because we can explore and learn from each other. But yes, if I'm going to coach you and you're an atheist, I'll invite you to find whatever that rock, that core is for you that helps you in those moments. And it will be hard for me not to feel limited in my ability to help you move forward with the confidence that I can with someone who has a belief in God, who has at least some sort of source or power that they believe has it. That would be difficult for me as a life coach, but also I'm never giving people the answer. I'm only giving them a mirror to help them access answers they already have. So I can use the same tools. It just is a little bit more nuanced and tricky to step around it if that's where they're at.
Yeah, that makes total sense. Yeah, when you believe that the death of the body is the death of it all,
Yeah.
which is not scientific though. They say nothing gets created, nothing dies, like everything changes. So you're like, I'm
Yep.
sorry, but if we're going to talk on your level, scientifically, they agree
Yeah.
with me.
Yes, I hear
But I
you.
understand, yeah.
But that never goes well when I when I come and say, "Hey, listen, this all the evidence." They're like, "Yeah, but I get to choose what I believe." I'm like, "Awesome. So how is that working for you? What is
Yes,
that
exactly.
creating for you? Where are you still getting stuck? Let's just go there. We don't need to decide what you should and shouldn't believe. Let's find where you're stuck."
I totally hear you. I usually, I will at some point if the person, brings a little bit of arrogance of like, I know better because, I'm like, you understand that the brightest mind, way brighter than me and you united, could not come up with a solution as to where the exists or the doesn't exist.
Yes.
So we're both in the belief system.
Yep.
And usually that comes everyone, and we're like, okay, can we now talk?
Mhm.
Oh, that's interesting. Um, so, what common grounds do you find when coaching women of varying beliefs, including, well, we were just talking atheist. So we talked about the difference now, interesting to see the similarities between, yeah, atheist and the other faith traditions.
Yes. So I don't do a ton of coaching outside of Christian women in the recent past. I did do some of that at the beginning. So I don't have a huge sample size to tell you where I find the common ground, but just in conversation. I mean, just I'm a verbal person and I believe in sharing and learning from the people around me. So just in conversation, a desire to learn and grow, a desire to move forward and become and expand is universal. That's something that I feel is always there. I don't care what your faith is. There's some of that in you. And then also a little bit of worry about where we're lacking. That seems to also be prevalent in humanity of, well, that thing that I did that I didn't want to do and I want to naturally beat myself up for, that always seems to be there as well. And those two things, you can coach anybody, right? About if I want to go somewhere and I don't want to be somewhere else. And what are your thoughts about where you don't want to be? And how are you supporting yourself on where you do want to go? That's universal.
So basically, a good coach is a GPS.
There you go. Yes. Help you know where you're at and where you want to go and stop trying to go backwards. Yes.
That's funny. Interesting. Yeah, I like that. Um, so how do you maintain, well, you said that you're no longer coaching, people. So let me scratch that. Could you share a success story where faith-based coaching helped a client overcome a significant life obstacle? So, we've been talking, in the general, I would love to hear like a case study basically.
Yeah. So one of the women that's really dear to my heart was one of my first clients. I mean, I've had lots since then, but she just captured my heart and I love sharing this story. So she had a lot of negative self-talk, a ton of it. She had been through different 12-step groups and been in therapy for over 7 years and just had all of the tools and the vernacular of the mental and emotional health world and just didn't feel like she could apply it in a way that would move her forward sustainably. She'd try and then she'd beat herself up and she'd get stuck and just get in these cycles over and over again. And I went through a 10-week program with her that I took her and six other women through. And as she started learning more about her lovability, her divine worth, her attachment to progress with her worthiness. That was just unlocked her capacity to give herself self-love. So I love talking about the 4 stages of self-love. The first one is that we are stagnant and unaware. We don't understand. We're not even paying attention to ourselves. But then the second one is stagnant awareness, where we do have some awareness, but we don't think it can change. We think it's stuck there. And then the third one is conditional change. This is where most people get stuck that are in the mental and emotional health world. They see that they can change. Like, oh, I'm not just that type of person, that stagnant, aware place. I can learn, I can progress, I can make goals, I can move forward. But then my love for myself is conditional on my change. So I have to move forward to be lovable. I have to make those goals to be kind to myself. If I don't, then I'm going to beat myself up along the way. I'm going to lose my confidence. I'm going to feel deflated, and I'm going to check out with the things outside of myself, like social media or food or addictive substances or whatever, to calm that shame that I've been feeling that I'm never going to be good enough. Right? They get stuck in that conditional change phase. So as I was teaching this to this woman and saying, what if you don't attach your worth to your change? You have all these tools, you have all of this knowledge, all of this self-awareness from therapy, support groups, and you're trying to force yourself to do it right for you to be lovable. What if you progress beyond that and you love yourself, and so you want to progress, not you progress so that you can find love for yourself?
Yeah.
And she just blossomed, just that permission to say, wait a minute, I don't have to chase love. I have divine, lovable spirit in me. I already have it in me. I don't have to find it outside of myself. I can just uncover it and take off the lies that have been there and access it. And I just watching her blossom. The day, I'm going to get all emotional, I'm actually pregnant. So there's some like easy there.
Oh, congratulations.
Thank you. The day where she sent me her first ever selfie and said, I can finally take a picture of myself and look at myself with love. I bawled. I just bawled, because she had been stuck in that place of just, I have to do it this way for me to be lovable. But really connecting with God and moving forward imperfectly because she loves herself and she just wants to, and because God already loves her right where she's at and is giving her permission to blossom and learn and grow. Watching that transformation has been so just humbling that I could witness that. And she's in an amazing place. That was years and years ago that I first watched that. As the first course I ever did was she joined me with that. But I just love telling her story because she's so inspirational to me, of someone who was working so hard to do God's will, to be the best herself, to move forward. She had spent years and money trying to find that, but simply giving her permission to be loved right where she's at, it made all the difference.
Isn't it amazing how like sometimes just a word
Yeah.
can be as powerful like as a key that unlocks everything? You're like, oh, I'm sorry, I should have told you this word like 3 years ago.
I know, right? Right. Well,
But
and giving that mirror to help them see that that's how they've been defining it, right?
Yeah.
This is why coaching is so powerful, because you don't realize what you've been defining the world as until somebody gives you a mirror mentally and says, hey, guess what I see? Do you see that? And they're like, what? I don't realize that that's how I've been operating for years. And it just releases that burden.
Yeah, from when I did sort of a self therapy a long time ago, and I discovered how powerful asking yourself a question, kind of like you're a 4-year-old, that stage where it's like, and why, and why, and why. And you're like, if you start to do that to yourself, or well, if you have a coach, it's even better. But yeah, because the coach will force you to basically ask yourself those whys. Then you're like, oh, I get it. Then you start to do that. And then you're like, oh, and why? And you're like, if you start to do that to yourself, or well, if you have a coach, it's even better. But yeah, because the coach will force you to basically ask yourself those whys. Then you're like, oh, oh, I didn't think about asking myself that. Oh, I didn't think about looking from that angle. And it's so heartbreaking when you see, when you've reached a higher stage, or we're imperfect creature, you said it very well, but when we've learned, self acceptance, when we finally understand the concept of unconditional love for the world and for ourselves, it's so heartbreaking to see people who are like, no, I'm not good enough for that. And you're like, no, 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 no. This is you're here because you have a purpose. You wouldn't be here if you didn't have one. So
Mhm.
shine. Yeah. So
Yes,
thank you so much for that story. I could feel your energy, and yeah, it really gets to the heart. Thank you so
absolutely.
much. Um, so have you encountered any resistance or particular challenges, sorry, when merging faith and coaching practices? It sounds like not, but maybe, there's more.
There's the occasional person who will say, "Oh, well, you're not the exact faith denomination that I am, and so I need somebody even more nuanced, like that. This is my exact faith belief to support me, so I don't want to work with you." So I have found that because I say I'm a Christian woman life coach, and they say, "Well, which denomination? Nah, you don't believe what I believe." I believe that the people that are in that space aren't quite open to seeing things in different ways anyway, so it's not my ideal client, but that is one of the things I have found only a handful of times as I shifted to the Christian women life coaches. Just people who want to say, why does it have to be Christian? And are you telling me that it's wrong? And then also, you might not believe exactly what I believe, so I'm not sure I want you
You
to
have
support me.
both
Yeah, both of
extremes.
those. Yes. Yeah. But again,
Oops.
we're just trying to open people's minds to say, if you're not for somebody, then if you're not against somebody, like if somebody doesn't look and see, not against, that's the wrong word, but if somebody doesn't look and see my website and say, that's not for me, then there's not going to be somebody on the other side that looks and says, oh, that is for me, right? Like
Yeah.
I'm not going to be for everybody, and that's okay. But the people who have the open mindset to say, oh, maybe there is something here, then I'm willing
Yeah.
to coach them with whatever beliefs they bring.
I like that. I think that there is a network of beautiful, souls that are trying to help others to get enlightened, reach that higher level of love and vibration. And
Yes.
like we were saying earlier, we all have different languages, and we all are here to help a specific type of crowd that will resonate with us. Like, I've
Yes.
done marketing for a very long time, and as you know, internet became bigger and bigger. Marketers would tell you, like, if you're just say you're a life coach, nobody's going to come to you because
No.
nobody resonates with, like, yeah, cool. But if you start to narrow it down to, like, this is my specialty, and I love that your specialty is, faith based,
Mm-hmm.
um then, oh, I'm that faith. Yeah, like you just said. And some people are going to be like, this is not for me, but it doesn't mean that as long as they don't feel like they're being rejected. It's just like,
Yeah.
no, we're just speaking that language. I highly recommend you go check out the X, Y, and Z. That might be better. You're more your jam. Don't force
Yeah.
yourself to eat a jam you don't like.
Yes, absolutely. I will say
um
I do draw the line on women versus men,
mhm.
specifically because my group coaching that I do, of the Radiant Women group, it's very much a feminine space of we are supporting each other as mothers, as wives, as whatever our passions are, and that is a very safe and sacred space for me. And I have put a line there of, if you're a man, I will give everything I can to support you on a one-on-one basis if you want to do that. But in the group, that's a Christian women group on purpose.
And I think that it's a valid thing, not everyone is supposed to be with everyone.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's okay to, okay, like, can we just tailor this, for a gender or for an age, or eh, you just connect differently. So
Yes.
that, opens a different energy. So yeah,
Yeah.
that totally makes sense to me. Sorry, man.
I know. Sorry,
You're
guys.
invited elsewhere.
There are lots of people that will support you.
Um, How do you address, well, I guess we talked about it a little bit, but how do you address any skepticism or reluctance toward combining faith with a personal development? I guess you just say thank you so much for coming and goodbye, but is there anything else to, uh,
I just like to ask curious questions. right?
Mm.
If somebody's coming at me of you shouldn't be doing this, just getting curious. It's interesting to me that you would see that as a conflict. Where's that coming from for you? And just give them the chance to be reflective instead of tell them that they shouldn't be saying something or shouldn't attack me or that their opinion is wrong. It's not helpful to fight someone who's coming at you. So just curiosity diffuses a lot of the time, I find,
Yeah.
at least.
And sometimes also heal because you're
Yes.
forcing them to ask themselves, oh, yeah, why am I that angry?
Yeah.
I always tell, people around me, if you're feeling defensive, you have an unsolved problem within, and you need
Yes.
to ask yourself, okay, why is that defensive energy coming from?
Yes.
And yeah, it's freeing. But okay, yeah,
Absolutely. Well, and like I said with my brother, gratefully I have a lot of practice with different family members and loved ones that have different beliefs from me. So I don't take it personally anymore. I don't have to be worried that they're going to try and take my beliefs from me. It's like, oh, well, you can have your beliefs, I can have mine, but let's get curious about why we feel confrontational here.
yeah. Yeah, usually probably means that you're not fully done reflecting on where you're at and how you believe. And
Mm-hmm.
usually, I mean, for me, I would feel like, okay, well, I need to get down in that. I mean, it's not a confrontation. It's more like I need to get back, on that field of exchange to understand better where I'm not clear and where I am. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I understand also why sometimes that kind of introspection can be frightening to people.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. Um, so you've mentioned a little bit about, your upbringing, you dysfunctional family, and I'm curious to know how your faith played a role in your, evolution. Were you born in a religious family or not at all? And how did that connection happen for you?
Yeah, so my family I grew up in was a family who had a specific denominational faith that they practiced, and it was a lot of it was routine as a child, right? This is what we do because we're this faith, and these are the actions that are expected of you. It's more of a checklist, and I grew up with a lot of that energy when I was young. But when my parents divorced, when I was a little bit older, well, I was 9 when my parents divorced, but my brothers at that point decided they wanted to redefine their belief. And that gave me the chance to say, okay, what do I believe? Do I want to keep believing what I have been believing? My 2 older brothers are doing things differently. Do I want to try something different, or do I still believe this? And as I saw, honestly, as I saw the product in their life and things that started happening that were not positive and very self defeating behaviors, it was good evidence to me in that moment to say, this path that I've been walking before seems to be working better. So I was doing it at the beginning out of a logical place of, I don't want to go where they're going. And so I'm going to keep going on this other path that seems to be giving me better results. And that lasted for a while. But then you hit this point where you have to really decide, is this something I believe, or is this something I've behaviorally practiced? And a lot of that came out when I was first married, and we were really struggling. We almost got a divorce. We had a year and a half of intense therapy. We had some detoxing we needed to do from my husband's past and my own past. And I had considered myself a recovering perfectionist for a long time, and a lot of codependent behaviors. And there was a moment where I just felt debilitated. I just felt like I cannot overcome this. This is too hard for me. And I was in trauma, very actively in trauma with some things that were happening. And I now can recognize that. But my brain had shut down, my body had shut down. I was very isolated from society. I was struggling to just put one foot in front of the other. I had a lot of therapeutic support. And I remember locking the door in my bathroom and just falling to the floor and just crying with my whole soul. And I felt so hopeless that I could go another day, that I could move forward and try and heal from this and face the demon and the beast that felt like it was waiting for me on the other side of the door of what was in my life, what I had uncovered from my past and my family life and my husband's life. And it just felt too much. I couldn't hold it. And in that moment, of prayer and just exhaustion spiritually, I reached out to God and I said, I can't do this. I've always said I had faith, but I need to know right now if it works. And I gave it to God and I just said, take it. You need to carry this because I can't carry this. And I can't describe to you what happened. You can't put it in words, but he took it. He just reached down, picked it up, and took it from me. And I felt like a new person. I was renewed in that moment. And I knew that it was Christ's sacrifice that healed me in that moment. It was so tangible. I just wish I could let all the listeners just see it the way that I felt it. But I knew in that moment that the healing power of the atonement of Jesus Christ was real, and that God heard me, and that he had more capacity than I ever would even imagine. And I opened that door and I moved on with my life. And I had so much more capacity and healing and ability to hold space for me, for my past, for my present, for my husband, because that moment I felt like I had gone to my own Gethsemane and I found Christ. And I had said the words before then. I had practiced the behaviors so that it led me to the place where I knew where to turn in that moment. But that was when I really found my faith. That was my early 20s. It was a long time ago, but I have found over the decade and a half since then that it all has come down to that moment. Anytime I have a faith crisis or a struggle or I don't understand a doctrine and I think, what do I really believe here? He brings that back to my heart of, I know it's real because I've felt the transformational power in my own life. And then I want to witness and give that same freedom to the women who feel stuck. And that's why I talk to women who are committed in their faith, but feel stuck in unfulfilling patterns, because I've been there. And they can look like trauma. They can look like just relationship struggle. They can look like relationship with self struggle. But it's that unfulfilling belief and that dependent on self that keeps us stuck. And when we find the healing power that's available to us, it's transformative.
Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing. That's very beautiful. And I mean, I cannot pretend to know exactly what you went through, but I have had moments like this where you start to ask and you get a response. And you know, you feel that almost transcended, you know, and light, and like, what was I afraid of?
Yeah.
Why do I feel like I'm high, like I smoked 40 joints but I didn't touch a single ounce of drugs?
Yeah.
And yeah, it's so empowering and freeing, and there is so much beauty in this world. You just need to tap into it and understand that it's there also for you. And so, yeah, thank you so much for sharing your story. I can relate a little bit to my own personal, you know, moment of, you know, when you connect that of connection with, you know, that divine sacred, you know, and
Yes.
it's, yeah, I understand why you would want to be like, okay, this is amazing. You need to experience it. And well, thank you so much for doing that work, because, yeah, I think the world needs to know that it's there, that they can tap into it, that they're allowed, and they're just as worthy of that energy as anybody else.
Yes.
Um,
Yes. And that's why
so,
I call
yeah, it's
myself the
beautiful.
light coach, is because I believe that light is it there. And I'm not the light. I just give you more understanding of the light that's already there for you and how you can access it, because it's beautiful. And I love the duality of light being something that shines light on darkness and flees the darkness so you can see clearer, but also light as in a tangible thing that goes from a place of burden and heavy to a place of free and light and capable to move forward and ascend. And so that's what the power is the power of light. And how do we show up in our life? Do we believe it's truly transformational? If we are, you see the evidence. And if you don't see the evidence, where are your beliefs stuck?
Hmm. And it's not even belief anymore. It's
Yeah.
knowing.
Yes. Yes.
It's My dad used to tell me, like, don't believe. Believe is, I tell you there is a plant in the furniture behind me, and I tell you to believe it. You would be crazy to believe me. You have to open, and when you open your own heart and you tap into that energy, like, okay, there is more to the physical realm. I am sorry. At least let's agree that there is so much more than the stick. I
Yes,
used to follow a
yes.
rabbi. He would always call not even the body, he would call it the stick. Like, you're not a stick. Like,
Yeah.
I like, and yes, at least, because it opens up. Yeah, like you were saying, it opens in your heart. It connects you to the magic of being alive.
Yes.
That's beautiful. Let me look at yeah, like, let's finish with that question. Are there any resources or practices you suggest for continuous self-development and spiritual nurturing, post-coaching, and for people who are listening, if you have, like, a few tricks or advices?
Sure. So, emotional literacy is one of the things that I hound the most. That is the flagship that if you don't know what you're feeling, you don't know where it is in your body, you don't know what it's telling you and where it's coming from, that's the baseline. Practicing tapping in, having an emotional language that you understand and you know how you're using it. Because most of the people on this planet, not most, but a good portion of the people on this planet don't know what they're feeling, why, and what to do with their feelings. And our feelings drive everything we do. Everything we do is either to create a feeling or to avoid a feeling. That's the main motivator in our day-to-day experience. So if you're not paying attention to your feelings, you're missing out on your chance to direct your life on purpose. You're just reacting with that primitive part of your brain that's on autopilot, or the habits that you've trained yourself to feel like are helpful but may or may not be in your life. So starting with that emotional literacy, I have prayer pages that I've created for my clients where you take a moment and you check in physically, emotionally, mentally, socially, and spiritually. Just one word, because a feeling is just a vibration in your body, right? So you just give it one word to acknowledge that vibration and you write it down. Okay, before I check in with God, I'm going to check in with me. How am I feeling today? Physically, I feel tired, or I feel flooded, or I feel rested, or I feel purposeful, or whatever it is that you're feeling, and expanding that literacy, that language, the vernacular that you use to not just go from I feel good, bad, just very surface level. Let's really tap in how we're feeling. Emotionally, how am I feeling? Mentally, what's going on in my mind? Am I spinning? Am I focused? Am I cleared? Am I distracted? And then you end with spiritually. Spiritually, how am I feeling? Am I feeling connected to God? Am I feeling distant? Am I feeling hungry? Just doing that check-in on a day-to-day basis is so powerful, because that self-awareness is where all of the money starts, right? All the change starts with knowing where you're at. That GPS again, here's where I am. You have to know where you are to be able to put in the destination of where you want to go. Or the GPS can't tell you where to go. They're like, okay, that's where you want to go, but where are you now? We don't know how to get there. So I love inviting people to say, let's be more mindful in how we approach prayer and progression, where we're checking in with self before we even check in with God. Because then your ability to be authentic and honest with yourself and God, it magnifies. And it can take literally 10 seconds after you've practiced this for a while. I can just sit and go, okay, what I call my PEMs. What are my PEMs? Or in my women's group, we laugh about it looking like PMS, right? But this is how we pay attention to ourselves matters. And then we get more clarity and we're open for God to then have a clearer conversation with us. And that's a meditation in itself, right? It's just a self-reflective meditation. And the other thing that I think is transformational is having a time to reflect after. So you reflect before and you reflect after. And on these prayer pages, I just have a place for writing down anything that comes for you while you're having this conversation with God, because we want it to be living. It's a living conversation. It's not a grocery order or a checklist or I'm supposed to say this prayer. it's the breath of life to have this conversation with God, and it sustains you. So if you're aware of yourself and then you actually acknowledge He wants to talk to you and capture that, everything else in your life cleans up because you have that self awareness, that honesty, and that invitation for divine guidance.
I am sorry about the noise in the background. I don't
Yeah,
know
I
what's
didn't even hear
happening.
it. I didn't even hear it. So we're good.
Good. Thank you so very much for those tips. And yeah, I really enjoy what you shared. I agree with you. It's a good base to do, whether you believe in God or you believe in a higher entity or nothing. It's always a good thing to check in with your heart, check in with your body. And if you don't believe, that there is a higher energy, intelligent energy, at least believe in your own higher self. I feel
Yes.
like there is not much difference between the higher self and God, and believe that you do have a higher self that is lighter and the higher vibration, and connect with that part. And I think that when we all do that, yeah, we create space for Zen, for
Mm-hmm.
peace. I appreciate how you said, yeah, to check in before you do a prayer or meditation. Because, yeah, if you don't do that, you have to have some resistance in the things that you're refusing to see.
Mm-hmm.
And you're not putting your whole energy out, for alignment and enlightenment. You're putting only a part of it. So yeah, that was very interesting. Thank you for sharing all this.
Absolutely.
I
It's been an honor.
enjoyed Sorry. I enjoyed so much our conversation.
Me
This was
too.
really cool. It yeah, it reminds me when I was in my 20s, and sometimes I was always addicted to having conversation with people from different faith,
Mm-hmm.
because I would always learn so much. Like when we don't know, we just know the stereotypes, whether we are acknowledging them or not. They're part of the background and they're part of the noise. But when you talk with somebody from that faith, like you said earlier, it's all in here. And I've really seldom heard, Christian people say, no, we empower ourselves, we could cause an insight. I've always heard, especially I appreciate how you were very respectful, never to mention a religion. I am, I'm always saying like, no, that was the Catholicism for me, and it was like, no, it's outside of you. And I was like, wait, what? How is that empowering? How do you? So yeah, and that would never happen if we were not engaging and seeing how we differ, and but also for me, that's where the magic happens, where we collide. Where
Yes.
I, I would say like where we collide is the universal truth.
Yes.
And I always like to think, I don't believe that there is a man in the sky. For me, I feel like people are getting confused with Santa Claus.
Okay.
But I do like the idea of, there is like an energy smiling when we do collide, and we're like, oh, we have that in common in our faiths. I do
Yes.
feel like there is, a smile somewhere happening energetically.
Well, both of us are definitely smiling, so that's a win.
Anything else that you want to add before we close our session?
Just if anybody wants to connect and it feels like they want to explore how they can live lighter and shine brighter, go to thelightcoach.com. I do a free 45-minute session for anybody who just wants to explore. No strings attached. That's available there if they'd like.
Thank you. Yeah, everyone, will have the link in the description. So feel free to check out Stephanie's work if you resonated with her work. And if you're like, yes, but I'm not Christian, it's okay. Like we said, there will be somebody else, so feel free to DM her or me and ask, for that kind of guidance. And I'm sure any of us will be happy to help you find the network, the plug that is for you. Well,
Absolutely.
thank you so, so very much.
You're
And
welcome.
maybe I'll have to have you another time and we'll have other discussions.
Absolutely. Anytime. It was a joy. Thank you for the invitation.
Have a wonderful.
And that's it for today, you guys. As the echo of this introspective odyssey are starting to fade away, I wanted to take the time to extend our collective gratitude to Stephanie for sharing her wisdom and her experience, her work, and to every soul who joined us today. I want to thank you for being an integral part of this gathering at the wellspring of wisdom. If the seeds planted today here have found fertile soil in your heart, um, ensure you never miss another episode by clicking the follow or subscribe button. I'm very excited about the lineup of beautiful people that have accepted to come on this podcast. So make sure to be part of all of those amazing moments. My dear friends, as we part away, remember that to live in your truth is the purest form of prayer or meditation. Same thing. Until we meet again, walk in faith, live with purpose, and above all, grant yourself of the grace of your own authenticity. Until next time.